Well, peace, fam. How y'all doing? I think I just rose. This is Oracle Deborah with the Oracle Deborah podcast on YouTube. It's been a minute for sure, and my system is absolutely freezing here, which is really weird. I have been under the weather, still under the weather, unfortunately. So just bear with me. I just wanted to check in. There's so much going on. I actually recorded two videos a while ago and I never uploaded them. I'm pretty sure if I go back to them, it'll be like old news, really, really old news. Anyway, thank you all for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And thank you to my new subscribers. I appreciate you as well. Like I said, I have been under the weather, physically and emotionally, one would say. That was it a full moon in Libra? I think it was that full moon in Libra was quite the doozy. Yeah, because that was in April. That was quite the doozy. I did a whole video on it, and it just revealed some things that I absolutely did not anticipate. I think that's the best word to use. And I it just took me down a whole nother rabbit hole. Like I didn't even expect. Nothing I could have prepared me for what that transit was like. It was unbelievable, and I'm still recovering, if one might say that, from that energy. And I thought it was personal to me because of my transit chart, and so there was no need for me to get on here and project that onto you. But one of the astrologers that I, sometimes listen to, it turns out that she was experiencing the exact same thing for different reasons, but still same thing. And so at this point, we know that it wasn't just a personal thing that was happening, but that this was part of how this transit played out. And who would have thunk with Libra that it would have had this type of, I don't know, if I'm being extreme, devastating outcome or effect on people. No one could have seen this coming. No one could have seen this coming. Scorpio, yes, all day, every day. Maybe even Pisces, because very watery, a lot of emotions, you know. But Libra, no, no one could have seen this coming at all. But it's interesting because the low vibrational side of Libra is deception. And it was a heavy Neptunian sense to what took place during this transit, because because of how we, basically how many of us interpreted the energy based on our own personal experiences. It became a message of, I've been delusional. I've been, hook-winking myself, bamboozling myself, um, in the words of Malcolm X. Uh, but no one could have seen the extreme of this, but maybe with that full moon in Libra brought that about, along with, it was transiting other planets and things like that. But definitely there was a Neptunian vibe in that. Um, because yeah, there was a sense of, a lot of us got hit with a really big ass, um, what you call it? We just got hit in the head with a reality check. And not that the delusion, I can't speak for everyone, of course, but not that the delusion on my end, maybe it's delusional, maybe it was denial, maybe it was, I need to, or maybe the hit in the head was, look at this reality that is not, that is actually here. It's in black and white, it's on paper. There's, this isn't up for, or this isn't up for debate. This isn't something that can be um, compromised. This isn't, not compromised, that's not the right word. This isn't something that, what's the word? Dang it. I mean, it just wasn't something that you could, I have the word and I just can't seem to get it out. But essentially, there was no, there was no movement around this. It was fixed. Even though Libra is an air energy, this moon or the reality that came into play or that was laid out before us, so to speak, um, yeah, there was no compromise. It wasn't something that could be compromised. It couldn't something that you could negotiate. That's the word I want to use. There was no negotiation on this. This was a flat out, this is what it is kind of thing. And it brought about a lot of grief. It brought about an extreme sense of sadness. And again, in what world would you equate sadness with Libra? You understand what I'm saying? So, because of the shock of it all, and like, initially I'm thinking it was only because something happened and it just, okay, full moons brings about emotions, excuse me. But I was thinking, um, it was because of something or some conversation or, something, some shadow work that, I had to revisit because it was a lot of that too, things from the past that absolutely have been dealt with, that absolutely have been addressed, that absolutely have been squared off with, was back again, And so at this point, we're kind of masters at this stuff. We're like, okay, you need that space. That's fine. We thought we would give it a space. We would go through the fields and move on. And it wasn't like that. This was such a deep dive into more like a lifelong review. It was almost like a judgment. I would call it a judgment. Oh, there is Libra. Boom, there it is. See, we say Libra is the judgment card, and it is about balancing the scales, and yes, it does. And surely, judgment, we came face to face with judgment, and it was rough. It was rough. Now, what happens after this is a whole nother story. Don't know. But that's exactly what it is. The Libra full moon, we came face to face with judgment. We were called up. We were in court and we got to face our judgment. That's exactly what it was. Wow. Um, and as humans, we still like to assess blame. We still like to assess accountability. Not at this point, again, in this community, we know we have to take accountability for our own actions and our behaviors. And even though we're here to teach, we also are held more accountable for ourselves, extreme accountability, actually. And the judgment, we came square on with judgment. And nobody saw that. No one saw it coming. I'm going to tell you. I didn't listen to a whole lot of videos beforehand. I did my video and I had my assessment, and things seemed pretty much surface level. Surface level. It just didn't, I didn't sense anything deeper than what my video had, that my video brought out. You know, I pulled up, my go-to, the yoga journal, and I did that, on the video and read through most of it and gave my commentary through it, and it wasn't lovey-dovey. There are some astrologers and everything's about love, 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 love. And yeah, everything is about love. And, which means everything, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly. That's love too, right? But I was getting more of the lovey-dovey messages. And, you know, that's not how I operate. I do like to go deeper, but this was a level of death that that nobody saw coming. Astrologers who have been in the game for decades, they didn't see this coming. And so it's going to make us stand up the next time we hit a full moon in Libra, but we're going to stand up and take attention. Because again, we expect death from a Scorpio transit or a Scorpio moon, something of other, anything that has to do with Scorpio. We expect death from Pluto. We expect that. We expect erratic behavior, which can be a life or death thing in a sense with Uranus, right? It could be very Uranian. We expect certain things from certain planets. Now, judgment, I don't think we really delved into this. And it's interesting because even though I've been studying astrology for, it's going on 6 years now, 6 years now, there was always something about that judgment card in tarot that always made me say, but what exactly are you really saying about judgment? Like, was it up for interpretation? Like, I always had a question about the judgment card, you know, and beyond what the tarot teaches you. It was always this deep-seated question about it because coming from, Christianity and knowing what judgment is, you know, it seemed slightly fluffy, you know, when the interpretations came about in terms of judgment. And I've listened to, like I said, I studied quite a few tarot readers, um, and nothing in depth. This full moon in Libra gave us a real-time experience of what judgment really means in Libra. And you better not play with her. She is not to be played with. So talk about standing up and taking attention to something. This was it. We faced our judgment. And if you look in the news and some of the stories coming out, Shannon Sharp, okay, that was one of the biggest things I can remember off the top of my head in terms of judgment. I'm not judging him at all. I have a lot of um, I have a lot of views about what's going on with him. Him being set up, this being a shakedown, but also him being sloppy, in his affairs. It's very sloppy, and I tend to like my ships to be run very tight. As a teenager, the boys would tell the other boys, oh, no, 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 no. You deal with her. She runs a tight ship. That's exactly their words. And that was exactly um, the reputation I had throughout the neighborhood. And not that I intentionally gave, it's just what they observed. They knew that I ran a tight ship, and I came from a very tight run household and a heavy disciplinarian hand and all that stuff. But kids coming from those environments, they get out there and they get buck wild. But I didn't, because it was part of my makeup. I just run a tight ship, period. And I saw Shannon as not running a tight ship. Okay, but before I get distracted, so his circumstances was one of the things that I can think of off the top of my head. When we talk about that judgment, you know, um, and there are other things. I mean, I didn't do a preparation honestly because I knew I hadn't been on in a while, and I knew I just needed to like make a showing and say something to you guys. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the full moon in Libra, absolutely, we squared off with judgment, face to face, face to face. And we didn't even know what we were dealing with. That was the weird part. We just went into an extreme form of grief, sadness, crying, lots of crying, uncontrollable crying sometimes. So it was really interesting. It was, no, I don't want to say it was interesting. It wasn't. It was just different. Coming from someone with so much responsibility, and there really isn't a whole lot of time to sit and feel. And even when I had time to sit and feel, the people around me generally are very uncomfortable when I'm in that state because I am the anchor. And what happens when your anchor is falling apart? So that space, the allowance to just fall apart, to just cry, to just be sad, to just accept the sadness. Now, that was key. That was a key thing for me. Even when I didn't run a household, I was the anchor because I was the person that essentially the vampires around me could feed off of. You can't have your anchor falling apart. And what's even weird is my next statement, because this is nowhere how I felt during this whole transit and this whole experience. Was that it was the universe was like, I'm giving you space so that you can fall apart. No one will be able to stop it. You would have been, isolated enough to have the space to feel what you feel and also have a trusted ear to hear you out and be there for you so that you can express your true emotions. Finally, finally. So many of us have no space, no trusted confidant, a confidant, nothing, no one that would just allow us to fall apart. We just need to fall apart. And it's sad and it's terrible and it's depressing as all of that sounds. It's turning out to be the most lovely thing, gift that we could have ever been given. Permission to fall apart. It's been lovely. This is so much so we have to be careful that we don't just sit in that forever. Because I didn't want to escape it. I said, this is where I have to be. This is what I have to feel. This is what I have to go through. then I don't want to betray myself by trying to escape my responsibility of feeling it, of going through it. So when my spirit started to lift, I said to myself, what are you doing? You know that's not who we are, but that was so off code because I betrayed myself in that as well. And my body said, okay, you want to stay in sadness? I'm going to show you. And I'll tell you the pain, the excruciating pain, and doubled over and all this stuff, to the point I was forced to talk to my body and say, you're okay. I love you. Yes, talk to your body. I had to talk my body into giving me some relief just so I can get some sleep because that's how bad the pain was in my belly. Oh, this has been like nothing I could have ever have imagined. And that's the thing about us gurus or us teachers or us shamans. Some of us call ourselves shamans or ICs or like whatever, oracles. It doesn't matter. Our journey is not linear. That's the thing. I heard someone recently say, I guess they're getting reports about a lot of people in the spiritual community saying, everything they did or have done is no longer working. This transit was a lot about that in a sense. And when I heard that, the first thing I said is, no. And the question was, does it work? Does it stop working? It doesn't stop working. It's just that the cycles end. We've been begging for a new cycle. We got it. Thing is, everything that we did beforehand in the other cycle doesn't work in this cycle. So now we have to learn new tools. We have to go through the process from scratch all over again. Because I'm not going to lie, I was like, I've done all this stuff. I've done all this work. I did the shadow work. I did the hard work. Why is nothing coming through? And then I heard this brother say this thing, and I was like, oh. But I knew right away. It's not that it's not working. We begged for a new cycle, literally. We called it in. We manifested it. We celebrated. We hoped for. Everything, all of that. New cycle. We thought we could use what we had in the old cycle in the new cycle. And that's like putting new wine into old wineskin. It doesn't work. It will never work. So here we are, starting from scratch all over again. So I will not edit this video and put the music on. And, this is just real talk right now. I am glad that I am going through the different stages of grief. I've experienced probably all of them at this point. The acceptance, the denial, the grief, the what is it, acceptance and denial, and the anger and the bargaining and whatever. I can't remember all the stages. And then I just heard about another stage, the final stages, which is meaning. Um, yeah, it's been rough. That Libra Full Moon, we squared up with judgment. We got our judgment. But in this case, you know, like I said, we were given permission to fall apart. We were falling apart. Nothing was working. You're like, we did all this stuff for things to work, and it all fell apart. And there came the grief, all trapped in our bodies, all the sadness, all the pain, all the heartache, all the rejection, all the loss, all the failures, all the missed opportunities, all of that, and then some, trapped in our bodies. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskin. So it had to be released. It had to fall apart. And we cried. Oh my God, did we cry? We wept some serious tears over and over and over again for weeks on end. It was nothing but weeping. We did nothing but weep and gnash our teeth. Oh, this was all judgment. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. Who would have thunk the Libra full moon would have brought this about? Now, I'll say, I have to add this part before I end this, because all of the reasoning came out in this video. This was not thought of beforehand. This was not a forethought at all. This came out as I was talking. What was the foreknowing was that my Venus, which initially when I started going through this, I was like, my freaking Venus is my enemy. It wasn't the Venus, it was Lilith snuggled up and conjunct my Venus and running, um, just running haphazardly and wreaking all kinds of havoc in my relationships, in my money, in my opportunities. And this was what was playing out. This is what all this grieving was about. That this has been going on for my lifetime. This freaking Lilith wreaking havoc in my chart. And here I'm looking at what's in my seventh house. Even though Jupiter is retrograde in my seventh house, that is the best place you will want Jupiter. But then you say Jupiter and Gemini are enemies. So no, it's nothing like that was really created. And yes, I have a lot of squares and oppositions and all these things in my chart, but that wasn't it. It was quiet, sneaky. I don't want to call her sneaky, but Lilith just cozied up next to my Venus. And I studied this transit, and I could never quite get an interpretation of this thing beforehand. So I moved on. I totally forgot about it. But it's that transit. I thought, oh my God, I'm done before I even get started. Almost like the Diddy trial. People are like, this thing is done before I even got started. Good, it was done. This is what people are saying essentially, based on the first day of his trial. Speaking of judgments, uh, look at this Shador situation with the NFL, right? There's a couple of judgments coming out, right? Him facing a judgment of sorts in the way they treated him, and now the NFL facing a judgment of sorts the way they treated him, and how this is reverberate. Golly. I've never had a problem with words before. This is weird. This is like very mercurial, reverberating throughout the sports community. There was another judgment now that I think about it, um, with Wallow talking about Black businesses, you know, a judgment of sorts. And then recently with Gilly, going to the bank and him not wanting to cash his checks, another judgment of sorts. This, let me tell you, this was serious judgment transit. But before all of that, before even coming on this video and this playing out in the video, all I thought was Lilith is snuggled up, conjunct my Venus, and it has and just made it so that ish was done before I could even get started. That's what all the work I was putting in, all the efforts I was putting in, grinding away for decades and coming up short every time. I'm about to start that process over again in another situation. Get right to where I'm about to fly to the moon and wah wah, just hit rock bottom again. Lilith snuggled up to my Venus in my third house in Aquarius, mucking with the groups and tribes and everything, siblings, everything. I was done before I even got started. Judgment. That's what the judgment card means. That's my interpretation of it. So don't play with Libra. Don't muck around with Libra. It was not to be played with. You will face your judgment for sure. And we did with this full moon in Libra. So my heart goes out to all of us at this point. I know it's been a rough ride for many of us. I know I'm not the only one now. And generally, you don't think you're the only one, but at the time, you think it's so very personal. You don't expect it to be anyone else. But this was a reverberating throughout the entire. I don't know what the hell is with that word in me. I use it, things just usually flow off my tongue, and not this word today, But yeah, it's been doing that thing throughout the basically throughout the throughout humanity. Basically, it's been all feeling it in some shape, form, or fashion. Um, we felt it. Oh boy, did we feel it. And yes, someone might say, yes, but Pluto was squaring this, or was the opposite of that, and Mars was doing this, and Mars, it was Libra. All of that, yes, all of that played a part in how we might see how it played out in our own personal lives and circumstances. We can see all that. I get it. But this was Judgment Day. As a matter of fact, let me see. I'm going to end this. And I know I'm not, my whatever today, t-shirt or whatever. But Friday for me and Hormonal Libra. Oh, I didn't write the date. But give me 1 second. I will tell you. I will tell you what date. Oh my God. Boy, was I looking happy on that day. Let's see if I can get a date in here. Oh, well, I don't know if you're going to really hear it. I'm not really trying to get you to hear it. I'm just trying to get a date on here because I forgot to write it in my notes. Hmm. Mm-mm-mm. Weird. Very weird. Oh, April 13th. Yeah. So, not quite a whole month from today, but close to it. So April 13th. So think about all the things that have been going down 3 days before and then all the days after. How this full pink moon wasn't it deceptive? A full pink moon made you think of May or April and flowers and Easter was happening. And, oh, it was so deceptive. That's where the deception came from. It was just cloaked and all of that juiciness, springtime, Taurus season, you know, sunshine, warm weather, pink moon, just made you feel like, this was going to be a lovey-dovey thing. Some babies were going to be made. Oh no. And maybe some babies were made, but this was judgment. This was a judgment moon. And this is apropos for us to be aware that not all things that come in these pretty little packages, you know, are going to bring in some pretty little gifts and things, and they'll bring in some judgment. We need to start rethinking how we think about things. That maybe things coming in not so pretty packages are bringing the gifts and the miracles and things. We have to start rethinking how we were trained to think, how we were conditioned to think, how we were programmed to think. What we are looking for, we have to shift these things. Start opening our minds and perspectives again and again and again to these newer things. Yeah. And yes, it was good that the grief happened. We had to make room for other things to come in, other experiences, other opportunities, other whatever. So we had to do it. And really, when you think about it, the havoc that grief plays on our bodies, on our cellular, at a cellular level, on our emotions, on how we think, on how we make decisions. My God, I look back and like, oh my God, I made some of the worst decisions ever. Just carrying grief because there was no room, no space to just fall apart. And we got it. We got permission to fall apart. And then witness us still standing. You're still here. You can fall apart, still survive it. That was the gift from the universe. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. Hopefully this wasn't too long for you. I do miss you. I do miss you. I miss coming on here. Um, like I said, I'm making some moves and my body is taking a hit as well. So I've got to focus and, just take care of the body, reset the mind, which is happening now, and just see what the universe has in play. Yes, I'm setting the intentions and all that, but I have to stay in the flow. Okay, I have to. So now that I have basically licked off all of my lipstick, and that's what this t-shirt says, by the way, life is too short to wear bad lipstick. And it's like really wrinkled, really old shirt. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. And just thank you. Thank you for listening. All right. So peace, peace.